Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to today's presentation. My name is Evangelysm and you are listening to the Evangelysm podcast, and I'm here to share with you my love of raiding for priests and generally having fun in the world of Warcraft and spending too much time in Ashra, the Outlands, and more recently, Draenor. Today is Monday, the 2nd of March 2015, and in today's show I'll be covering the news, Talk, which will be all about Ashra, my mailbox, and yes, I have actually got some real mail. And this is how we do it, which will cover the 4th tier of the priest talents. But first, my weekly update on what I've been up to inside the game and in the real world. In the past week, I've mostly been playing Warcraft Shock Horror. I've also started 2 wacky WoW-based projects. Well, first project is not one I've started recently, but it's one I haven't announced here before, which is leveling a shaman, which, no, it isn't that wacky and it isn't that much of a project as such, but I'm doing it with a twist. I'm levelling my shaman through Draenor without a garrison, and so far it's been quite difficult as there aren't many quests once you hit the point where the next step in your quest line is to build the garrison. Getting around is also quite difficult as I have no quick way to get to Shadowing Valley from outside of Draenor. So I've got the Hearthstone based in Ashra, and even that is a bit of a pain. The second project that I've got is levelling a new druid, a brand new druid. I've rolled it on Azune, which is the sister realm to Shadowsong, and I'm only going to do it through PvP. Now, it's very early days on this one. I'm only level 16, and I've only just got to the point where I'm able to do PvP, which was actually level 10. I didn't realise this until level 13, so I'm a little bit behind on that one, but it's what I want to do. I want to see how hard it is to level through PvP only. Now, I will be doing some quests and killing and gathering whilst I'm doing my queuing up time. But apart from that, I'm going to just do it all through PvP. No instances, just all pure PvP. Now, in my raiding, I actually missed the first guild of Cromog this week, the one for Exhumed, my guild, because I was actually working from home and I got a little bit tied up on a case, which meant I was 2 minutes late for the start of the raid. Now, with it being flex, that's fine. The guild can just carry on and run without me. I joined 2 minutes after they'd pulled. So I'm sat outside the instance, on TeamSpeak, listening to them, and I hear the hero call at 30%, and I'm thinking, please wipe, please, no, just for me. But I didn't say that. I do really don't want the guild to wipe just because I'm not going to be there. It is hard, but they did get him down. It was Cromog, and I missed the first kill. I managed to sneak in on the screenshot though, so hey, all's good. I just need to kill himself this week coming. We then moved on to Orgorger, and we got another first kill, so we're now 7 of 10 heroic, which is all great, fantastic, great news. But there was some bad news for the guild. The patch that was released last week, 6.1, was billed as a content patch, and unfortunately there was very little in the way of content in it for people that want to raid. And there wasn't enough for some people in my guild to renew their subscriptions because of the lack of content that they saw in 6.1, which means that my guild is now missing 5 raiders. We've got a 30-man mythic team, and we're looking for 5 new people. We need 2 melee DPS, 2 range DPS, and a healer. Now, the melee DPS, we are pretty full on warriors, and we are pretty full on paladins for DPS. But if you're a rogue or a monk, you're golden, because we have none in the DPS ranks. So please apply if you want to. We are EU side, unfortunately, for you US folk. So, unfortunately, if you're US side, if you want lag, yes, you could apply, but there's better ways. So, EU folks, please do apply. 2 range DPS as well. We've lost 2 of our 4 hunters, or 5 hunters, I can't remember. But we will take any range DPS. We've lost 2 hunters, we can afford to take another 2 hunters if we really needed to. A little bit of diversity would be nice. We've only got 1 warlock, we've only got 1 shadow priest, we've only got 1 shaman, we've only got 1 boomkin. So there's lots of options there. We are open for everything, as I say. And our healer, we've got every healing class covered except for monks. Or every healing spec covered except for monks, because we've got a disc priest, me, we've got a holy priest, we've got a holy paladin, we've got a resto shaman and a resto druid. So if you want to apply, do that. The address to reply to, you need to visit our website, www.exhumed-guild.co.uk, or you can tweet me at Evelix, or you can email me here on the show at podcast. Well, it's not at podcast, it's podcast@evelix.co.uk, so you can do that. If you really do want to raid with, we raid Wednesdays and Thursdays, 2100 to server time, to midnight, and that's Central European time. If you're in the UK, that is 2000 hours to 2300 hours, or in old-fashioned times, for us old-timers like me, there is 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. UK time, and 9 p.m. till midnight EU time. On the US, like I say, I really wouldn't bother. It's a lag fest. Don't go there. But now, the news. In the news this week, Blizzard have confirmed that realm connections are complete, for the moment at least. Some dungeons have had shortcuts blocked off in undocumented changes in patch 6.1, and this may lead to the resetting of some challenge mode dungeon leaderboard times. In raiding news, Paragon have joined Method in being 10 of 10 in Mythic Blackrock Foundry. The US first and Alliance firsts are still up for grabs, with Midwinter in pole position to claim both titles, with Blood Legion and Scrub Busters close behind them. In weird changes, Draktheron Keep has had an issue fixed where Novos the Summoner was unkillable on heroic difficulty. And in the Culling of Stratholme, also in Wrath, there was an issue fixed where the Darkrune chest, after defeating Mal'Ganis, could not be looted, also on heroic difficulty. Priest news. Saving Grace, a discipline and holy talent, has now been changed so that it heals for 34% less in PvP combat, down from 25%, and now also correctly reduces absorbs done rather than the absorption taken. The PvP 2-set tier bonus for Shadow Priest is now removed at the beginning of a boss encounter, but the set bonus will still work during the encounter itself. And finally, the Glyph of Purification is no longer bind on pickup. So, now it's time for the main event, my topic of the week. Let's talk about Ashra. So, what is Ashra? Well, Ashra is the big battleground for Warlords of Draenor. The ultimate objective of the battleground is for each faction to kill the opposing faction's leader. When the battleground is won by either side, there's a 5-minute pause, after which the battleground simply restarts. Now, the way you win Ashran isn't just to waltz up to the opposing faction's fortress and kill the boss. You have to do a series of events along the way. The road to glory is literally what it's called. There's 7 battles. You start in the middle, and you work along these battles all the way up to the opposition's front door. Once you've completed that one, you bash them in. You go over the bridge, you go into their fortress, you invade, and you wipe them out. That is literally what you do. Now, Ashran is an instance, just like every other battleground. And in every instance, the population of both factions is tightly controlled to maintain equal numbers. There may be 1 or maybe 2 extra in one faction compared to the other, but you don't get massive faction imbalances. If a server had 99% Horde and 1% Alliance, you aren't going to see that represented in Ashran. The faction's presence in there will be equal. Okay? Now, the design goal that Blizzard actually came out and stated was that their primary goal with Ashran was to create a zone where 2 factions were competing against each other throughout the zone. They expected players entering Ashran to have 2 motivations. The first was to earn 200 conquest points to fulfill the Ashran bonus portion of their conquest cap. And the second one was to kill the faction boss for their daily chance at the loot from the gleaming Ashran strongbox. Now, the loot from this strongbox is one of the problems, because the box can drop a 600 item level blue, a 620 item level blue, or, very minutely, a 660 eye level epic. Sounds great, but the chance of that epic dropping is so slim. And this was before 6.1, sorry. Now, the main problem, pre-6.1, was that there was the ability for both sides to get the same reward at 2 different places at the same time. Players could earn both conquest and if you kill the opposition's faction boss, the chance of loot. And the other way that you can get the conquest was by doing side events. Now, there was an unofficial player-defined or created rule that said that the Alliance killed the Horde boss, and the Horde did the side events. Well, the only trouble there is that the side events give you conquest infinitely, barring your cap. So if you've got a normal weekly cap, you get about 2,000 conquest points. It's not the exact figure, it's about 2,000. And that can all come from Ashra. But if you do arenas or rated battlegrounds, you can earn 1,800 from other sources, but the last 200 have to come from Ashra. So by doing Ashra, you can just infinitely run the side events and get your conquest cap. The Alliance could only get their cap daily by killing the Horde faction boss, which gave 350 conquest. Now, as someone that does RBGs and arenas, I was losing 150 conquest points that way. Unless I did the Ashram part first, and then I got 350, and then I didn't have to do as many RBGs or arenas. But the Horde could simply just gain all of theirs every Wednesday on the reset, or Tuesday in the US, by running around doing the side events. And it was simply a place, Ashram became a place that was devoid of real PvP. And both sides still actually earned their PvP rewards by doing PvE encounters. Now obviously Blizzard needed to fix this, they realised this. So in patch 6.1, Blizzard removed conquest from the bosses, knowing full well that this meant the Alliance and the Horde would be forced to compete against each other in the events for conquest. They also knew, and I've got my fingers in the air there, they also knew that facing new opposition at the events, the Horde would once again engage in the Central Road. Quite how they knew this fact is beyond me, as there was no reward for killing the opposition faction bosses. So why would the Horde want to do it any more than the Alliance would? Blizzard also did acknowledge, though, that killing a faction boss only to receive a 600 item level aspirant gear wasn't very motivating, so they removed that from the gleaming Ashmore Strongbox, and that made it so that it would always award either 620 item level combatant gear or the 660 epic gladiator gear. But the drop rate on that epic is so pathetically small for a once a day shop that no one cares. Sure, if there is an event there, you'll go and kill the boss, because if that's where your faction are, why not join in, because you're not going to win the side events. But those fixes were placed in, and 6.1 came, and now there is still no PvP in Ashram. The epic tug of war along the Road of Glory just simply doesn't happen often enough, because once the boss has been killed once on the first time of the day, and everyone's got their gleaming Ashmore Strongbox, they just go and sit in the events. They don't want to help new people joining the battle to earn their boss kill, and this means that everyone is now sitting at the events permanently. But surely you'd say it would encourage PvP. The Alliance and the Horde will be fighting each other in these events, and if you listen to Blizzard, they claim there is increased competition between the two factions at the events, and in fact on the main road. But maybe my luck is bad or my timing's off, because I'm just not seeing that at all. What I'm seeing is queue times have dropped, and they did need to drop. 3 days in a row I waited 3 hours, and then 2 hours to get in, and only on my third day of getting in did I actually get my conquest. But there is no main road groups going to kill the opposition faction boss, and instead of the Alliance fighting the Horde, or the Horde fighting the Alliance for that matter, both teams now sit in 2 event areas. The Alliance camp the Quarry, the Burial Grounds, and the Horde camp the Stadium and the Ogre event. Now, as an Alliance player, if we move to the Horde event areas, we get butchered because of the tunneling effect that each arena has. They've got this road in, and you're funneled. And to be fair, it's not just an Alliance thing. If the Horde were to do the same to us, they get the same problem. And you just get butchered because you've got these masses of players all running into this little funnel, and the defences are strong. My biggest issue is that the whole purpose of Ashra has been removed. Killing the faction bosses because of the events are where the guaranteed rewards are. That doesn't make sense. My biggest issue is that the whole purpose of Ashram has been removed. Killing the faction bosses doesn't happen, because the events are where the guaranteed rewards are. I simply cannot understand why the events are not simply a way of boosting your faction's chance of success in killing the faction bosses. For example, what I would do when the faction bosses are reset, each event happens in turn, and the reward for winning an event is a bonus that either helps you save your boss or kill the opposition's boss. And only once all 4 events have occurred will the faction boss is spawned. Once spawned, the side events can stop, or should stop in fact, until one faction boss is defeated, and the winner receives their spoils. They receive conquest, and they receive their strongbox. And then, after 5 minutes, the events start all over again. To make things fair, players in Ashran at that time should be kicked out of the zone and made to queue again. This would encourage both factions to do everything in Ashran, because everything actually makes you work towards the ultimate goal of killing the boss. Everything happens only once per battle, and the faction that wins most events obviously has the better chance of killing the opposition faction boss. Sure, the 2 teams could win 2 events each, but you still had the chance. Both bosses are now summoned. And yes, it probably does sound familiar because it sounds like Alterac Valley. But I'm sure I heard back in recent times that was Blizzard's goal. They wanted to reproduce the epic battles of vanilla that we saw in Alterac Valley. Please, Blizzard, listen to the community. The forums are ablaze with people moaning, creatively moaning. They aren't just trolling and QQing. They are putting up arguments of why Ashra needs to be fixed. How the fix that Blizzard have put in actually breaks it even more. And yes, the players are partially to blame because, like water, we take the easiest route to victory. And the victory that we're all after isn't killing the faction boss. It's conquest points and gear. And we need to be made, unfortunately the player base needs to be made to do everything. That's my thoughts on Ashran. I'd love to hear yours. Please do get in touch if you've got any feedback about this section. Please send your emails to podcast@evlix.co.uk or tweet me at evlix or tweet the show at evangelysm.cast. And now for something completely different.
There's a letter in your mailbox.
So this week I've got my first real email. It makes me feel a little bit humble, as previously things I've discussed in this mail section have come from people I knew before the show started, either in-game or through the game, or even through people I've interacted with on Twitter for months, years, whatever. But this week I've had a real email from a gentleman called Bruce, or at btarrow2, that's BTARRO number 2, who's asked me 3 questions. The first question is, what drew you to the priest class above all others? Well, I was told by my dealer, my friend who got me playing WoW back in 2005, that a healer was the best thing to play, as you always had a group. Well, you could always find a group easily, even if you had no one in your guild that you could run a dungeon with. And this is before times when we had the group finder and that sort of business. You just used to have to stand around in Trade Channel, which used to be in Ironforge, as an alliance player, and probably Orgrimmar as a horde, and that you found a group. The groups would be looking for priest healer, or not priest healer, but looking for healer, tank, and 2 DPS. The 2 DPS would eventually be in the group, and then they'd be looking for tank and healer. It's always been the same. So I was told to choose a healer, which worked for me because back in my D&D days, I'd played a cleric, and I didn't play it very often, but that was what I played in D&D, and sort of knew what was expected of a cleric. And he told me that a priest was the best healer. So I went with the priest because my friend told me to get a group fast, play a healer, and the best class for a healer was a priest. And I chose a human because I wanted to play a human, because that's what I am. If I knew then what I knew 12 months later, back in 2005, I would have chosen a dwarf, because I needed to play Alliance, and the dwarf would have been the better choice. But I chose a female human. Hey-ho. And the reason I would have chosen a dwarf, by the way, is because of Fear Ward, which was a dwarf priest racial back then. That's all now baked into every priest, so hey, doesn't matter. I've really enjoyed the priest. Loved healing. Played DPS. No, I'm not so good at the DPS on a priest. don't particularly enjoy it either, but I've stuck with it. It's great for leveling. And I like priests. What more can I say? I've tried every other class. I've got at least one of every other class. Well, no, technically I've got at least two of every class because I've got one alliance and one horde. I've got one of every class, both factions, at 90 or higher. Most of my alliance ones are now higher. All of my horde ones are still stuck at 90. But that's it. Never look back. I wouldn't have changed anything. No, that's a lie. If I'd have known what I know now about the game back in 2005, I would have probably chosen a paladin. But hey, I didn't. I chose a priest, and I love priests. I won't change it for a thing. Evelix will always be my main. The one I rolled on day one. My very first character was Evelix, a priest. The same priest is playing now. It's the one I still call my main. I did have a year or two off in TBC, but that's beside the point. I would never ever change my main away from Evelix, unless for some bizarre reason I ended up playing in the US or Australia where I can't play my EU account. So that's it. I would play a priest all the while now, ever and ever. The next question that Bruce asked was, do you have any plans on complementing the priest information in the podcast with YouTube content as well? The simple answer to that is no. The long-winded answer, which is what you're going to get, folks, sorry, is that I would like to include more information in the show than I am at the moment. That's coming. I'm working on it. But in a perfect world, I really would love to do this. But working, having a family, and wanting to play WoW means that the time I have really isn't sufficient for me to do the podcast and some video work and do everything else in life. So at the moment, it's something that I've got on my I want to do list. And in a real perfect world, what I would do is I would stream more priest specific content. But unfortunately, I keep saying, unfortunately, my internet connection is really, really, really slow for streaming. I've got 2 meg down, and you'll love this one, 1/3 of a meg up. So I can't actually stream. It does also mean that uploading stuff to the internet is quite time consuming, and videos with speech or sound are quite large in size. The ones that I've uploaded before have been anything up to about half a gig, and that takes an awful long while at 300 kilobytes a second. I know my telephone company here in the UK, the people that look after the whole of the telephone network, the infrastructure, they are planning rolling out fibre, and where I am is right on the bottom of the list. And the reason for that is that I live 8 kilometres away from the exchange, and technically I shouldn't even get broadband. So the fact that I get it is good. I could move. My wife might not agree with that, especially as my motivation for it. So yes, I'd love to do more video stuff. I'd love to do the streaming, because that would free up a lot of things, because I can upload and do the same everything at once. It takes a lot of the work out of me. It takes the video editing out, and the video editing is very, very time consuming, especially for a man that doesn't know really what he's doing with it. So there we go. In an ideal world, yes, I will be doing more content. I will be doing more videos. Once I've got the ability to do it in terms of my internet connection and some time, that will happen, or may happen, depending on which way you want to look at it. And the third thing that Bruce raised with me isn't really a question, but it's more of a suggestion, which is maybe I could add some recorded raid or PvP footage as an overlay to my podcast, which I do upload to YouTube, which is a really good idea. It's something that I did sort of think about a long time ago. Well, I say a long time ago, at the beginning. And then because of the problems that I mentioned in question 2, I didn't bother with. But what I may do is trial it on this video, on this podcast. I might do that. We've got a raid tonight. It'll be lots of wipes on Blackhand. Hopefully not. You might even see the first kill. And what I'll do is I'll just put it together and see what's what. Can't make any promises whether that'll happen. It depends on the size of the video when I finish producing it. But that's it. Some real mail. Thank you, Bruce. You're a star. Follow Bruce on Twitter at btarrow2. Tarot is, well, it's the whole thing, at BTARRO 2. Follow him. He's a good chap. He's contacted me. And that's really it for the mail time now, because I've got nothing. But yes, so if you want to be mentioned on this very section of the show, please email me at podcast@evlix.co.uk or via either of the two Twitter accounts. My personal one is at Evlix, at EVLYXX, or at Evangelysmcast, which is the show one, which is at EVANGELYSMCAST. All one word. And that is it for the mail section. Now we'll move on to my tip section, which we call This Is How We Do It.
This is how we do it. All hands are in the air.
In this week's This Is How We Do It, we're going to take a look at the Tier 4 or the Level 60 talents. As we saw with the Tier 1 and Tier 2 talents, the choices here are the same regardless of the role and spec you're in. Void tendrils root up to 5 targets for 20 seconds or until the tendril is killed. This is my default choice for PvE because if I've got aggro on an enemy, I can kite it to my tank, root it in place, and then return to the safety of range, which will then force the melee mob to be hitting the nearest target, which if I've done it right, will be the tank. Void tendrils are also much safer to use in PvE than Psychic Scream, which is an AoE fear that causes up to 5 enemies within 8 yards to run away for 8 seconds. There are times when the fear is safe to use though, so it can be quite useful at times. However, it is exceptional in PvP, and depending on the group you're in, can be much better than the third option, which is Mind Control. Well, Mind Control is now known as Dominate Mind, but I like to use the old name, so I'll stick with that for now, but it's Dominate Mind when I say Mind Control, okay? Now, it allows a priest to control an enemy for up to 30 seconds, as long as that enemy isn't mechanical. Mind Control has uses in PvE and has been needed on certain fights. Vesuvius in Naxxramas was the biggest example that I can think of, and here, what a priest would do, pretty much all fight, was mind control the adds that would then off-tank the boss. However, the most common use for Mind Control is in PvP, and it is exceptionally good at removing enemies out of the arena, particularly off of cliffs, like the lumber mill in Arathi Basin and the central flag area in the Eye of the Storm. I also had great fun throwing adds off the edge in Vortex Pinnacle during early Cataclysm, but eventually this got hotfixed as I discovered when the 4 adds that I'd just mind controlled off the edge came running back into the fight on the very last boss. It caused a few laughs on TeamSpeak, but fortunately I was with guildmates and not in a pub. And so ends the show. If you'd like to contact the show, please email me at podcast@evlix.co.uk or alternatively via either of my Twitter accounts. The show account is at Evangelysmcast and my personal account is at Evlix. Good night.